Hello, everyone, and welcome to this Bloom webinar. I'm Alexander Stevenson, the founder of Bloom, and we supply vetted and experienced charity freelancers for interim, part-time, or project work. If you want to find out how Bloom works and get advice on hiring and managing freelancers, then you can sign up for our forthcoming webinar. Details will be on the email that follows this event. A bit of admin before we begin. Please keep yourselves on mute throughout the webinar. If you have any questions or comments, then write them in the chat box and we will do our best to feed them into Henry either during the conversation or afterwards. This is being recorded, so please don't share anything you wouldn't be happy sharing with a wider audience. On to the important stuff. I'm delighted to introduce Henry Rowling. He's the founder of Flying Cars, an innovation, insight, and strategy agency for charity and cause-driven brands. He spent 25 years in fundraising and raised over £100 million. And he's worked for some of the largest, best-known charities in the UK, including Macmillan, British Heart Foundation, RSPB, Greenpeace, Dementia UK, and Battersea. And what particularly excites me, and the reason I'm so pleased he's come today, is that he's put some real thought into how smaller charities can take advantage of some of the approaches that these bigger charities use and do so in a way that they can actually, they have the resources and are able to deliver. So without further ado, over to you, Henry.
Fabulous. Thanks so much, Alexander. I hope I can live up to the big hype you've given me. Much appreciated. Probably not warranted, but yeah, I'll do my best. Very nice to see everyone this morning. I'm going to try and pack in as much value as we can this morning. It's a practical session, and we'll give you some real kind of tips and tricks that you can hopefully utilize almost immediately within your own non-profits and organizations. As sort of Alexander said, insight, audience insight, research could be viewed as being something quite expensive or out of reach of smaller organizations. I'm going to show you today that that is very much not the case. So we will be moving quickly through a little bit of theory around research, just why it's important and how it can help you, but then move into some really practical stuff that you can do almost immediately to start developing either fundraising campaigns or service delivery, designing, delivering new services for your organizations, developing strategy, all sorts of things. So I've tried to make it a really practical session. I'm assuming everyone can see this deck okay. Is that good? Fab. So just to very quickly, in terms of flying cars, we set up in 2019. We had one operational year before COVID hit. We managed to survive COVID, and since then we've been lucky enough to work with some fantastic organisations that you can see on your screen today. So we essentially we develop new fundraising propositions for new audiences in the mass participation, community, individual giving spaces, but we also do help organizations with service redesign. We do a lot of work with AI, so developing new campaigns using AI to speed up and improve the quality of the outputs of what we're doing for our clients. And we also do quite a lot of training sessions. So most of what I'll run you through today, we can also train in a relatively straightforward way. None of it's rocket science. It's just kind of knowing the processes and the tricks of the trade, I guess. So, just a little bit of grounding theory. So, innovation isn't an easy process, easy thing to do. It is a process that you sort of trust and you stick to the principles, and it gets you to a good position. But what we find is that people want something that's truly innovative. You're often told by a boss, pave the way in sector-leading new fundraising products. We want to do everything really bold, but it also has to add up on the financials front and what are the benchmark sector figures. And we need your ideas, new ideas to plug a massive hole in our income. It's not an easy brief. There are many, many, many innovation frameworks which all look very beautiful presented like this on a slide, but they never really work out in that way. So whichever innovation framework you want to follow, that's fine. But just be aware that the reality is that it's often a very messy and non-linear process, no matter what those sort of frameworks say. Really, I guess one of the most sort of key principles that I want to kind of get across today is that listening to kind of what your customers, what your supporters, what your beneficiaries are telling you is a really crucial skill, and one that we perhaps don't always practice as often as we could or should. So Listening, you can do in a number of different ways. There are many digital ways that you can listen to what the conversations that are happening online. You can be more aware kind of in the streets as well. But just make sure you've got that listening ear on. Um, this is an interesting kind of principle. So if you start with an audience need for insight, it will give you the strongest chance of developing something that's really interesting. But if you start off at the wrong place or with a really bad idea, it doesn't matter how many times you sort of cycle through the test, pivot, improve, or process map, then you won't be able to get past a certain point. So starting with that genuine customer or supporter need is a very kind of important principle. So quickly to kind of cover off what insight is. Insight is a deep understanding or awareness that's often gained through careful observation. It's a realization or comprehension that can help you to lead to new perspectives, solutions, or breakthroughs. So it isn't often might be just perceived as being something around data. It's not statistics. Sorry, the record button just came up there. It's not an observation, it's not just a hunch, and it's not just information. It's almost certainly, when you see a strong insight, it's almost certainly not a consciously articulated needs. You need to dig deeper into what it is that your customers or supporters are telling you. So, what insight does do is it helps us to understand why people do what they do. It will help us find an unconscious hidden need. And insight is all around us. So, again, if you may feel that you need to do research with a kind of agency like ourselves, but actually, if you look around at the assets that you've already got within your organization, you're probably sitting on more insight than you realize. So any kind of customer service logs you've got, any incoming emails, any support forums that your organization might run, these are all full of really rich insights, and we just have to listen to what people are telling us and utilize that information if we're trying to develop maybe a new fundraising campaign or a new awareness raising campaign. So, a good insight should help us to re-examine convention, to challenge the norm, and then to build ideas that your audience actually wants to see. So, if we think about why people want to take part in sponsored runs, for example, kind of quite a basic, easy example, ostensibly, the organization might think this person wants to raise money for a cancer charity. That's highly likely. But if you keep asking why, then you'll get to that kind of that not non-articulated need that I talked about. So the why around this is that they then might tell you I can raise more from my networks than alone. So actually they want to raise money through this networked way because they can actually get more money for the cancer charity in that way. Ask why again. Well, then if I do that, I can get my friends and family involved, and it actually becomes more of a community event. And we all know that we get warm feelings from being in community. This is a really important part of being a human. And ask why was that important again? Well, it's so that actually I can tell everyone what was happening to me without actually making it fully about me. So there's a lot of kind of unexpressed need within just a very sort of simple, basic act of taking part in a sponsorship. It's actually about letting people know what I'm going through without sort of going and saying, "Oh, did you know that so and so, my mum's got cancer." It's there's a much deeper human need at the root of this quite basic action. So again, a little bit of sort of theory here. This is you could describe this as an insight pyramid. So at the bottom, you've got signals, and these are low cost signals that are all around us all the time. So Reddit is an incredibly powerful, and I'm going to show you this in a live demonstration in a minute, is an incredibly powerful source of insights around topics that you guys work in. TikTok comments. So any kind of comments on the social media platform are really, really instructive and will tell you a lot about how people are feeling. As I mentioned at the bottom, the cheap signals, the customer service logs, incredibly powerful information. Search data, even things like the autocomplete on Google will tell you what most people are searching or thinking about particular topics. Debriefs, of course, with your frontline staff. If you have sort of frontline staff, really insightful. Any kind of review platforms, again, very, 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 very useful. Any of this stuff that's online, You can take that information and just put it into your AI tool of choice. So hopefully some of you have got either like a Copilot or ChatGPT, or you're utilizing Claude. Those platforms are very good at taking conversations online and turning them into insights. And the types of insights that they are going to create for you, you could, if you worked at a large organization, you would probably end up spending a lot of money just to receive them. So I can't stress this enough that there is a lot of insight freely available on the internet. As we move up that pyramid, we're then sort of looking at more structured exploration. So we do at Flying Cars, we do a lot of kind of customer interviews, in-depth conversations with audiences, surveys, so running sort of quant data and concept testing. So where we've got ideas, testing those ideas with the target audience. And at the top, you've got behavioral validation, which is where you're doing more things like smoke tests, running kind of digital tests, running pilots and MVP launches. And that's sort of further up the chain. Why is insight important? Because essentially, these two people that you see on screen, they're not the same person. They might be the same age. If you look at them just demographically, they might look similar in terms of age groups and where they are in their lives, but their views could be completely different. And often within organizations, what I've seen at charities is that decision making is made based on seniority and personal preference. So that's fine, but it's not the best way of being audience led. So we try and coach and work with our clients to move away from this kind of decision making into audience led decision making, which will lead you to a better place. If you want to engage new community givers aged 45 to 55, you need to talk to them to understand what their lives are like, and they may tell you some information that is surprising to you and is different to what the received opinion within your organizations might be. This is just an illustration that insight is everywhere. So you can do desk research, trends tracking, surveys, one-on-one Zoom listening sessions, and we're going to talk a little bit about insight, social insight platforms today. What makes a good insight? It should give you a new perspective on a topic that you haven't considered yet. So it has to sort of have that standout thought and go, actually, God, I've never considered that. It should address tensions. So, within any kind of human situation, there's always duality. You might be feeling one way and you might be feeling another way, and tension is a very rich territory to explore. You should think, I've not seen that before, I've never thought of that before, and it explains why people do what they do, not just what they do. And good insight should be enduring. So when you find an insight, it's not trends based, it should last for several years. And in that way, you can also reutilize the information. So I've talked a little bit about theory. Let's get into some practicalities. So, Reddit, my number one love at the moment. So, a lot of AI tools mine information from Reddit and get their information from Reddit because of the way that the information is structured. So, my recommendation is find a subreddit, which is like a little thread of people that are interested in your topic. I've just got dementia as a sort of example here. Find a subreddit around your cause area. So if it was dementia, it would be r/dementia. Take that URL and put it into your AI tool of truth, of preference rather. I don't know how to say truth. So put that into your ChatGPT or Claude or whatever it is, and ask it to pull out the 5 top line insights that they can find for your topic area. So I did this before with this r/dementia, and this was the outputs that we got from it. So the insights that were generated from this were around caregiving. So caregiving as a role isn't just hard, it's a total life takeover. So it's framed as losing your own life when you are the primary caregiver. Burnout is the default state. It's not just the exception. So it's not something that might happen if you're the primary caregiver. It's something that's assumed. And then that tension that I talked about earlier is guilt and resentment sit side by side. So you feel love, you feel duty, but you also feel that guilt and resentment about what's happened to your own life. And these are perfectly understandable and fair enough feelings to be for people to be feeling. So there's frustration, anger, even relief. It can be experienced, and this is all information that's got from that subreddit. So what we then did when I kind of asked it to analyze that thread, I then said, okay, we've got these insights here. Caregiving is a total life takeover. Burnout's the default state, and guilt sit side by side. And so, can you create some fundraising campaigns ideas off the back of this? So I said, give me 5 new fundraising product ideas that match these insights. And then I chose the one that I liked the best, which was Night Shift, the Sleep Support Fund. So from the Reddit, it was seemed that the one of the core insights was that nighttime is one of the worst periods. Um, People with dementia are wandering, there's confusion, carers are not sleeping well. So the idea that ChatGPT came out with was that you could have a fundraising product that was tied to night care. So donors might fund a night of sleep. There might be an overnight helpline, emergency responder support, or subsidizing night carers. And so you might have £30 equals one night of rest for a carer. Really quite a nice campaign. So let's go into a live demo of how you can do this, and hopefully this will work. So I found 3 subreddits I thought were relatively interesting. There's one on homelessness. I tried to make it because I was aware that there are lots of organizations on this call. I've gone for a broad selection of subreddits. So there's one around homelessness, there's one around accessibility of the countryside for people of color, and there's one around living with chronic illness. So we are going to just do a live demo on that. So I'm going to take the first subreddit here. So here it is. Excuse the bad language. Non-homeless people have zero effing inkling what it's like. So you can see on this, if you do this, you want to find one that's got, a good few comments and a bit of traction on it, because in that way you know that there's going to be some deep insight from it. Alexander, can you see this screen okay? Yeah, cool. Okay, let me just move my zoom. So we are then going to go into ChatGPT and paste that in. And then I'm going to just come out because I need to grab my prompt from the webinar deck, paste it into ChatGPT, and then go back. Okay, so we've got our Reddit thread, and I want you to analyze this Reddit thread and draw out some insights for me, my client, a homeless charity. This is where I desperately hope ChatGPT is working. Here we go. Good. So this thread is incredibly rich from an insight perspective because it's not really about housing. It's about identity rupture, nervous system damage, social disconnection, permanent psychological adaptation. So it's pulling out some quotes. No one understands how that life completely changes you. Even when you become housed, you're still a homeless person. That's a really interesting insight. So it's doing the themes. So it's saying core insight themes. Homelessness is experienced as a permanent identity change. The public fundamentally misunderstands homelessness. So posters feel the public sees laziness, addiction, irresponsibility, but misses the chronic stress, survival, psychology, humiliation, etc. Trust becomes damaged. So quite rich shame and invisibility are central. Rich insights coming out from this. Homelessness creates long-term nervous system adaptation. Thread challenges deserving versus undeserving narratives. So quite interesting insights, and that's all just coming from one Reddit thread. Let's just take that one step further, and I'm going to grab another prompt. Okay, and we'll show how quickly you could turn these into. So these are ideas only. I would say, if you're doing this within your organizations, do this initial stage and then work on them with your colleagues. So, I would never say this is a finished campaign idea, but what I would say is it's quite a good, effective brainstorm. Okay, so we're going to say, okay, take this insights and give me 3 potential fundraising campaigns that we can launch. So the first one is survival mode, a mass empathy building fundraising campaign. Most people think homelessness is about not having a home. A lived experience says homelessness is living in a permanent state of threat. The creative mechanism would be a survival mode lens. So examples would be sleeping with your shoes on, constantly scanning exits, never fully relaxing. The fundraising ask is donate to a fund of trauma-informed support, long-term recovery services. Second idea is the years people never talk about. So storytelling-led recovery campaign. The core insight: people in the thread repeatedly describe having to hide years of their lives because homelessness makes others uncomfortable. The creative mechanism would be real people describe the jobs they never mentioned, places they slept they never discuss, friendships they lost, years they mentally cut out, how homelessness still shapes them today. A bit on campaign structure. You can obviously take these and work with them over time. Home is a feeling is the third idea, a hopeful long-term brand and fundraising platform. The thread repeatedly suggests housing alone doesn't immediately create safety. So there's loads of really interesting, rich territories that you could start to work with, just from literally just this analysis of a thread. And I'm just going to do one more demo of how this might work, just to sort of hammer home the point. We'll do a new chat in ChatGPT. Sorry if I'm moving quite quickly through this, but I just wanted to emphasize a couple of points on this.
Henry, just while you're doing a couple of Reddit specific questions
Yeah,
that have come in.
yeah.
One from Hannah about whether how whether you use a particular Reddit thread rather than the whole subreddit. Are there what you do? And then that's a more technical one from Nikki that says Reddit is blocking the direct scraping and her searches are therefore pulling in adjacent but not directly Reddit source content. I don't know whether that's in your that's a technical support is in your wheelhouse, but just in case it was.
Interesting.
Hmm.
Okay. So on Hannah's, I would say have a look to find a particularly juicy Reddit thread. So you want one with sensible conversations. So if there's just trolling on it, then obviously just I wouldn't use that. I would say, you want one that's kind of got maybe 50 replies on it. The subreddit is probably going to have the actual Reddit is probably going to have contradictory stuff on it. So I'd find a subreddit. So I'd find a strong subreddit thread that you can use. The whole subreddit is probably going to have a lot of very rich analysis on it, and you might want to do your own analysis of the whole subreddit. But if you're just trying to develop ideas for a particular campaign, I'd find that subreddit thread with lots of sort of data on it. Nikki's point, Reddit's blocking direct scraping. Therefore not paying attention. Yes, that I'm not sure the answer to, Nikki. I don't know what tool you're using. They tend to vary. Copilot has different rules. Claude has different rules. Yeah, it could be. I would use one that works. So I know ChatGPT works fine. Yeah, using Claude. Okay, so it's blocking it. I'm not sure on that. I would need to give you a bit more support. I'm just going to do a final show on this one. So this is around people that have been experiencing microaggressions and racism when they go into the countryside. Um, okay, this thread is fascinating because it's not really about hiking, it's about belonging, visibility, permission, and who subconsciously gets coded as natural in rural spaces. So the countryside is perceived as culturally owned by white Britain. These are points of view from Reddit. Just take these. They are not fact, but they are how people feel. Micro signals matter more than dramatic incidents. Representation alone is not enough. The countryside has a hidden class code as well as race code. I would personally say these are quite deep insights that you're getting for free. Yeah, I've made my case, which is that I recommend you have a dig into subreddits for a lot of information. I'm going to go back to the webinar, the rest of the stuff, because we're running out of time. Hopefully that was interesting. So some cheap testing methods. So we would say before you build anything too expensive, run £50 of meta ads against 3 messages and see which of those messages do the best. You can easily spin up a fake landing page and track the clicks that you get from that. And just if you've got literally no money, send an email to your supporters with 2 concepts and see what they prefer the best. And you're looking to measure clicks, comments, signups, etc. I'm going to quickly run through this. You can conduct your own research calls. So we do a lot of qualitative research within flying cars. You can do this yourself. Don't speak to your super supporters because they already love you and they're going to tell you everything you do is great. Try and find some people who don't already support you because they'll probably be a bit more honest about things. The deck will be circulated, so I'm actually not going to cover this off. What I do want to do is just recap and then we can do a little bit of questions. Ideas without insight are just generic and they're not rooted in need and they're less likely to resonate with your audience. Insights everywhere in the street, wherever people meet, online and offline. You just need to listen. Does not have to cost a fortune. Probably shouldn't be saying that because we do. We do research, but it doesn't have to cost a fortune. Obviously, if you do want to invest in it with flying cars, we will do a great job. Use tech tools to accelerate and create your ideas and then test them cheaply. And I've done a first 7 days of low cost insight for you. So on day one, you're going to read and analyze Reddit threads. On day two, you're going to run 3 supporter calls that you set up yourself, not with actual supporters at the moment. Then you're going to summarize the tensions and look for convergence and divergence. So anything where people are converging and diverging is rich. You're going to prompt AI for ideas on day four. Use multiple tools if you can to give you variety. Day five, you're going to share them internally. Obviously, day six is a weekend. So let's say day six is a Monday of this little plan. You're going to test your messaging. And on day seven, you're going to launch a tiny experiment. That's my recommended 7 days of low cost insight. And if you want to connect with me and talk about this stuff more, it's just Henry at flyingcarsinnovation.com or the slightly garish banner. Connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm often on LinkedIn. Yes,
Brilliant.
right.
God, thank you, Henry. That's amazing. I mean, we're pretty much out of time. So unless anyone's got any burning questions, I think I might push on. There were two things that have not happened in any of our webinars before. First of all, Henry had the guts to do a live demo, the high wire jeopardy of a live demo, and it worked. And then secondly, leaving us all with a plan for us to do. So I mean, thank you incredibly much for all that. There was so much in there, both the grand thinking at the start and then the practical applications. When Henry first walked me through that Reddit AI mashup, I found it genuinely scintillating. We've already had a bash at using it for Bloom, and I'm sure many of you will be doing the same. So thank you all for coming and participating, and a particular thanks, of course, to Henry for sharing so generously, so thoughtfully, and so engagingly. You can obviously link up with him, and he's got a LinkedIn profile, I think, has been put in the chat. And you'll also receive an email from us with links to the Flying Cars newsletter, which you can sign up for. I thoroughly recommend doing that. And links to 2 further webinars we are putting on in the near future. The first, as I mentioned earlier, is about how to find and manage freelancers. That will be with myself and Anna. And the second is with Penny Wilson on how to get the most out of trustees. And on Monday, I'm pleased to say we'll send you a recording of today's webinar. So thank you again for coming. Thank you, Henry, for doing it. And I hope we see you all again soon. Goodbye.